the News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Monday. Hope you had a good weekend, and I am really glad that you're with us this morning. We're going to take your phone calls, get into some details about another News Channel 5 investigation that I think has got a lot of people talking, and it's already been airing to some degree, and there's going to be more to come. And really, to get into this and to replay some of the pieces for you if you've missed them, and to take some of your questions, we're joined this morning by News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams.
Good morning.
Nice to have you on, sir. It's good to have you.
I apologize for not bringing coffee.
You are a coffee. He's just got it down. You have an app where you can just sign up and get the coffee waiting for you when you get there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great app.
All right. Look, Phil and I both depend on coffee first thing in the morning. I know you came in early for us, and I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on. Listen, I want to give you a chance before we look at some of the pieces, just in case there are some folks that haven't seen all of the pieces. If you give us a little synopsis of what you've done to this point, and again, it deals with Metro schools, the grading process, and what's gone on here that's kind of disturbing.
Yeah, one of the big issues that's kind of at the center of this investigation is that Metro schools have been boasting in recent years that, after a few really bad years, that they're on the rebound.
The president came.
Yeah. And the test scores are on the way up, and we're focusing mainly on high schools.
Okay.
Test scores on the way up, graduation rates, in the words of the school district, are skyrocketing. And yet we had some whistleblowers who came to us and said, listen, there's a lot more to this story. Things are not as good as they want you to believe. And so we've been looking at a number of issues. Testing, whether students are really doing as well on those high school tests as the school system would have us believe. The whistleblowers say that the school system, Metro Schools, is using a number of clever means to kind of keep those low-performing students from showing up in the testing.
Okay. So you kind of call them out, and so you get a higher score because they're not figured into it. They wouldn't have done as well.
Exactly. And then, we kind of expanded from there. We had, one school, the lowest performing school in the district, which is Pearl Cone High School. They came up with their own grading policy. Metro went in 2013 to a controversial policy that no student could ever get below a 50. So if you wadded up the test and threw it back at the teacher, you didn't get a 0, you got a 50.
Wait, what is that, an F, a D? What would that be? That's something.
That's an F.
Okay.
And 70 is passing is a D.
Okay.
So the argument was, we don't want kids to get into a hole so deep that they cannot climb out of it. But we found at Pearl Cone, they had actually created their own grading policy that no student could ever get below a 60. Just 10 points below passing.
Yeah.
They had a policy that if advanced placement students signed up for the AP test, just signed up, they got an A for their semester exam grade. And so students signed up, went into the AP test, and slept. In the words of one English teacher, they were essentially paying for an A. We had allegations of cheating with an administrator taking credit recovery classes for students who had failed a course, doing online work to help them pass. And in fact, we had evidence of a student who was signed up, and a struggling student who was signed up and finishing up 2 courses that he had failed at the very same time. 2 separate computers, 2 separate classrooms, 2 separate subjects. And the school system says, well, that's possible. He was bouncing back and forth between computers. And then we got into pressure for teachers to change failing grades to passing grades. And that's been the most recent story.
Big picture, Phil, people watching, whether you have children in the schools or not, if you could, give us the sense of why this is important, that people understand, and maybe the pressures involved and why they would do something like these types of things happening. What is the big picture? What's the takeaway? The kids are being cheated?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the big picture issues here, because metro schools have been under intense pressure over the fact that they were not educating our children as they should be. So if the test scores and the graduation rates are going up because the schools are doing a better job, that's great.
Yes.
But if those scores are going up and the schools are not doing a better job, then that's a real problem. And so are they cheating the children? Are they lying to the public when they say graduation rates are skyrocketing? Is that because the kids are truly learning more, or is it because they're playing with the numbers? So that's one of the big picture issues. I think the other big picture issue underlying this, all of this, is there too much testing? Are teachers and schools essentially just playing to the test? Mm-hmm. And instead of worrying about teaching, I heard from someone last night who says that every fourth instructional day there is some sort of test to see, okay, how are we progressing, and so you lose an instructional day. So I mean, there are a number of issues surrounding testing, but the basic issue we're trying to get to the bottom of is, is the public being told the truth? Yeah. Are we doing a better job with our children, or are we failing our children?
There you go. All right, we have the one piece let's take a look at maybe before we go to the break and start taking some phone calls. This is on the grade changing. That's the most recent piece, correct, Phil? Exactly. Okay. And
this is a former Teacher of the Year for Metro. Who, ultimately, as you'll see by the end of the piece, just sort of threw up her hands and said, I'm out of here, I'm going to another district.
Yeah, we lose the Teacher of the Year. Right. Because she's had it with this. Let's have that piece, let's take a look at that, and then we'll come back with more calls and conversation with Phil.
It's sad that we cannot, as educators, have high expectations when the administration is saying that no, high expectations are going to make us look bad as a school.
For Lanita Harris, Hunters Lane High School was a special place. A 1987 graduate, she returned in 1992, beginning a 20-year career there as a teacher.
Get the yellow book.
She became a well-respected English teacher who, in 2006, was named the Metro High School Teacher of the Year.
And if you think you know something that's right, you need to be unafraid to say it. Wow, that's a risk, isn't it?
What our emphasis should be on.
But under the direction of Principal Susan Kessler, Harris had the higher-level English classes taken from her. She was assigned to teach English 2 to a group of struggling students.
I had tried everything I knew to do, and the scores, their performance was still very poor.
In the classroom?
In the classroom.
Then in March 2012, Harris says an assistant principal came to her at the end of one grading period with a message. She had too many failures, almost half of the students were failing, and something needed to be done. His instruction:
I needed to change every grade, failing grade for every student, that it had to be changed to a 70, which is a passing grade of a D.
Every single grade?
Every single grade.
She pulled out a sheet of paper to document it all.
Let me make this clear. All students will pass 9 weeks with a 70. And he said, that's right. And then I asked him if this was his idea, and he said no. And I pushed him, and he finally said that, yes, Dr. Kessler, the executive principal, had given this directive. And so I wrote that down. Dr. Kessler told Mr. Johnson to tell Miss Harris to change all these grades to 70. And I said, is this what she said? And he said, that is correct.
Harris says she was stunned.
I had one student who had been in my classroom only one day that I had physically seen this child.
You had to give that student a passing grade.
A 70, correct. One student in particular would just throw the work on the floor. I don't know if I can say this on camera, but the student told me to get the out of my face.
And you had to give that student a passing grade.
And that student got a 70.
There was even a student who had assaulted her a few months before who was still on the books in her class.
Yes, he was one of the failures.
And you had to give him a passing grade.
A passing grade. That's an insult to me. That was hard to do.
Harris says she did what she was told. Then she headed down to the school board offices to file a complaint. The next morning, Kessler summoned Harris to her office.
So, tell me what happened.
Harris recorded the entire meeting.
If 49% of your students didn't learn anything, then that's a teaching concern.
During a 45-minute conversation, Kessler tried to put the blame back on Harris. She even suggested the teacher was being unfair to the student who refused to do the work, since the student seemed to grasp the basic concepts.
If his performance indicates that he's learned, then why would he fail? Because he does not choose to do the work. He doesn't want to pass. But why does he, I guess here's the question, why does he need to do the work if he can perform in a way that indicates he's already learned it?
And the whole time I'm thinking, we're skirting the issue here. That you forced me to do something under duress that is wrong.
Changing the grades.
Changing the grades.
On the recording, Kessler suggests that Harris treat the passing grades as a loan to encourage students to do better in the next 9 weeks. Yet in a written statement provided to the Human Resources Department, Dr. Kessler insisted that Harris was never directed to change her grades, that she simply did it on her own as a knee-jerk reaction to being questioned. She even argued that the former Teacher of the Year's credibility is highly suspect. But we got the file from Human Resources, and it shows that another teacher revealed that the same assistant principal told her, you have to change these grades. He was specific. Dr. Kessler wanted it done by the end of the day. Another teacher was told any failing grades would not be acceptable. Yet another was ordered to change failures to passing, all of them, regardless of how close they were to passing. In that case, a second assistant principal actually had an email from Kessler herself saying he needs to change them. That assistant called Kessler's demand totally unethical.
This piece of the contract.
But when word got to Chief Academic Officer Jay Steele's office, higher-ups decided there was no violation of policy. Still, in an email, the lead principal over all Metro high schools cautioned Kessler, you must do everything you can not to exacerbate the problem in any way that may cause the teachers to take their complaints elsewhere.
A successful teacher in Metro under this regime is going to be a teacher who is willing to sacrifice those things and say nothing about it.
In the end, Harris decided to move to another district, but the woman who was once considered one of Metro's best teachers still worries for the children at the school where she found her own direction in life.
We're setting them up for failure. We're lying to them. And we're lying to their parents, and we're lying to the public to say, we have these high graduation rates, look at how much good we're doing. It's a lie.
Wow. Okay, there you have it. Phil, I guess, should we take a break real quick here since we've gone long on this? Let's take a break. Lots to talk about and phone calls coming in. 737-7587. We'll be back with more and Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams right after this.